Imagine leaving everything behind, your home, your family, your country, and sailing across a vast, dangerous ocean toward an unknown land. This was the reality for thousands of people in the early 1600s. They were searching for something: freedom, opportunity, and a better life. In 1607, a group of English settlers arrived and built the first permanent colony, Jamestown. But life there was far from easy. The settlers faced hunger, disease, and conflict. Many didn't survive the first few years. Still, Jamestown managed to endure, and it marked the beginning of English America. Soon after, more people began arriving. In 1620, a group known as the Pilgrims sailed across the Atlantic on the Mayflower. They were seeking religious freedom, tired of persecution in England. They settled in Plymouth and built a new life based on faith and community. Over time, more colonies were formed along the East Coast. These would become known as the 13 Colonies. Each colony was different. In the north, people focused on fishing, shipbuilding, and trade. In the middle colonies, farming and commerce thrived. And in the south, large plantations grew crops like tobacco and rice. But as the colonies grew, so did their reliance on labor. And sadly, much of that labor came from enslaved Africans. Millions were taken from their homes and forced into hard labor, creating a painful and lasting part of American history. Despite these struggles, colonial society began to develop. Towns were built, schools were opened, people began to create their own local governments. But even though they lived in America, the colonies were still under the control of Great Britain. At first, this wasn't a big problem. But over time, tensions began to rise. After fighting costly wars, Britain needed money. So they started placing heavy taxes on the colonies. There was the Stamp Act, the Tea Act, and many others. The colonists were angry. They believed it was unfair to be taxed without having a voice in government. They called it no taxation without representation. Protests began to spread. One famous event took place in 1773, the Boston Tea Party. Colonists, disguised as Native Americans, dumped British tea into the harbor to protest unfair taxes. Britain was furious. They responded with strict laws and punishments. But instead of calming things down, it made the colonists even more united. Leaders began to emerge. People like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and Benjamin Franklin started speaking out against British rule. By the mid-1770s, the situation had reached a breaking point. The colonies were no longer just asking for fairness. They were ready for independence. In 1775, fighting broke out between colonial forces and British soldiers. The American Revolution had begun, and in 1776, something historic happened. The colonies came together and signed the Declaration of Independence. It was a bold statement to the world. They were no longer part of Great Britain. They were now free and independent. From a small, struggling settlement in Jamestown to a united movement for freedom, the colonial period shaped the foundation of what would become the United States. It was a time of courage, conflict, and transformation. A time when ordinary people took extraordinary risks to build a new nation.